All right. Episode 10. We're in double digits now. This is a bit of a milestone.
Double digits. Double freaking digits. It's pretty interesting. I mean, who would have thought two bald guys from across the world meeting one time in Boston would possibly start a podcast that could potentially, well, not potentially, we fulfilled that potential, gotten up to 10 episodes. It's a pretty fucking big deal, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's nearly probably 9 hours of waffle so far. So,
Waffle? What's waffle?
well, just it's just us talking, and hopefully there's something interesting in there for people. But yeah,
I'm just not familiar with the term waffle.
Haven't heard of that term before. Okay,
well, maybe it's an Aussie thing. I don't know.
Maybe it is. Yeah.
People have been commenting on the sultry nature of your accent, and it makes me a little bit. I mean, I don't know. Do people talk about my American accent in Australia? They're like, "Wow, that guy, he just has a wonderful Midwestern twang to him."
I got to be honest. Not yet.
Not yet. But it's usually the female patients, and we don't really have a high female listenership. You know what I mean? It's usually the Australian girls are like, "Wow, he's got an American accent." That's my best Australian girl right there.
That was very good.
That's my best, like, Gold Coast Australian girl that pops up on your fucking Instagram Explore page when you know.
Yeah, you've clearly been watching some Hugh Jackman movies lately, dialing it in.
It's clear, hey, I'm all about the Hugh Jackman movies. It's a good guy, good dude.
So we're on episode 10, and we are thinking about today, our topic that we're going to get into is going to be along the lines of how Mike and I have landed in this space and why we favor the style of work that we do over some of the other stuff that's out there, because, everyone gets injured, everyone experiences musculoskeletal pain from time to time. And when that happens as a patient, you've got a lot of options available. There's a lot of different ways you can go. So what do you do? There's so much out there. If you jump onto Google and you punch some things in, you're going to get flooded with different options in your area. And a lot of the time, people have they tend to want to go towards something or other because maybe of what they've experienced before, or they've got a family member. Some families just go to chiropractors, some families just go to physiotherapists, or so sometimes there's an influence there. And but there's a lot of different options. There's lots of ways that you can go. Our option is a little bit different again, and we tend to favor soft tissue treatment most of the time. But I think we should make the point too that we tend to favor what is necessary. We tend to favor what is actually the right thing to do for that patient and for their problem. But that said, a lot of the time that does involve soft tissue treatment to restore range of motion and restore function. So we thought that given that is a little bit different to what you might come across in some other settings, that we should run it back a little bit, provide a little bit of background about how we've landed in that space and why we think that's important. So let's do it. Throw it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're looking for a solution to any problem, there's going to be a multitude of solutions that lie on a kind of vast continuum of, both, I guess, a certain level of trustworthiness, a certain level of perceived value, a certain level of cost, I guess, so to speak. And, you can go out there and buy a product, and a product's going to have 1,000 reviews, and a product's going to be $45, and you may think that, hey, this is the product for me. I've got back pain. I need a foam roller. I need the fucking piece of plastic that you stick in your stomach. The So Right, fucking sue me. And probably on the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got somebody like us where we're not covered by insurance. We don't do anything that's quote unquote mainstream, except I'd make the argument that there's nothing more mainstream than getting you out of fucking chronic pain. And yeah, so you kind of got that continuum where it's like the fucking foam roller and us. And it's like, how did we go away from the foam roller and turn into us? I mean, the obvious answer for me is it's just what works, right? It's what we found fixes the highest volume of patients. It's what we found allows us to have the greatest satisfaction within our own practice. And it's what we've found that like morally, ethically allows us to sleep at night. We've done it. At least I've done it. I've genuinely practiced like a traditional, I've never practiced like a traditional chiropractor where it's like I just adjust you and then put you on heat and stim and then leave. But I've worked for the practice that has, that's quote unquote a progressive chiropractor, right? Finger quotes, to where it's like you come in, we get you on a little heat, we loosen things up, we take you through a few soft tissue movements and we adjust you. And then we put you on stim, and then we have the rehab tech throw you on some exercises. And it's like, I wasn't getting fucking results that way. So when I first went to a seminar, when I first went to an ID, when I first started utilizing principles of medicine to actually guide my treatments, is when I started actually seeing results, in my patient base. So that to me was, how and where and why I got there. I started out doing this bastardized version of ID. I went to a more kind of, again, generalized progressive chiropractic model where I was treating supermodels and athletes, and I was in a city and it was supposed to be exciting, and I just fucking hated it. Right. And then I got to where I am now, where I've got this little is the right word to describe it. Humble, I would say, sort of humble beginnings practice. And I'm fixing more people. I'm generating a better reputation. I've gotten more patient referrals than I've ever gotten. I've gotten more people better than I've ever gotten. And that's why I do what I do. And I continue to recklessly pursue it. And I continue to enjoy getting better at it. So, I mean, that's another factor too. It's, you can get better at this every time you do it. So there's that sense of constant and never ending improvement.
Do you remember what the tipping point was, or what what kind of switch had to flip where you went and did that ID course and went down that path? Was there something that really kind of piqued your interest and set you on that?
I'd always been interested in it. I just was never in a position financially where I was able to take a whole weekend off and spend $1,200 to go to the seminars. And looking back at it, it was such a foolish thing to think of, because, you make that $1,200 back in a fucking week, like really, truly. And, it was something I was always curious about. And actually at that practice that I worked with, I got, this is a great fucking story. I'm glad you asked. I got $1,200 of continuing education credits per year. And they were trying so hard to get me to a Kennedy decompression seminar to learn how to do Kennedy decompression. And the reason behind that being is it's one of those things where they were charging cash for. So what they would do is they would have you come in, you'd adjust you, they'd bill your insurance for the adjustment, they'd bill your insurance for the passive modality, they'd bill your insurance for the rehab, right, the 7.5 minutes of rehab, and then they'd go in and they'd sucker you for 12 visits on decompression. So sometimes, depending on your insurance, they're making fucking bank with it. They were bonusing us. Like, I would get a bonus for selling a 10-pack of decompression therapy, right? So, and I wasn't doing a good job of selling it. And they're like, well, maybe you just need to go to a seminar so you can learn about all the science behind decompression therapy. And in learning about all the science of decompression therapy, you'll buy into it more and you'll be able to sell more. And my supervisor, I was begging him. I was like, this is what I want to do. I was like, I'm begging you, just let me go to this thing. Let me go to the thing. And it was just like life changing after that. Ordered a table, had the lumbar calculator, had the soft tissue tool. At the time we were using these like factor tools. I don't know if you're familiar with factor,
Yeah.
but I switched to what I was using and I was getting great results. And then the other clinicians were like, oh, this guy might be onto something. And I was teaching them something. And then, it just got to a point where the friction between what I was doing, because what I was doing wasn't generating as much money. I wasn't recommending that people do this stuff. I wasn't recommending that people go on heat and stim. I just didn't think it fucking worked. So I stopped having them go on heat and stim, and I started getting them better in 12 visits, in 8 visits, in 6 visits, when we were supposed to have them go at least a 16 visit plan. We were supposed to refer X amount of people over to the physical therapy side of the process. I wasn't doing that because these people didn't need physical therapy. They weren't post-surgical. They didn't have fucking nerve palsies. They weren't objectively weak in certain areas. And that was the tipping point. And I was just like, I'm going to fucking stop this. I quit. They almost sued me because I didn't fulfill the duration of my contract. We got into a couple not legal tussles, so to speak, but there were some threats going in there both ways, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. I stopped. And after that point, I was like, I got to do this 100%. Here's a great story too. But the last week I was there, I went home sick on a Thursday. I legitimately was not feeling good. I had Friday off, and then I was working the Saturday shift. They got pissed at me. No. I was supposed to work all the way through Monday. So I had patients on schedule on Monday. Got Friday off, went in on Saturday, looked at my schedule on Monday, and it was all blocked out. Like none of my patients were on schedule on Monday. So I called my supervisor. I'm like, hey, Dr. Sir, why aren't these people that I brought into this clinic on my schedule on Monday? And they're like, well, when you were gone on Friday and when you left Thursday afternoon, we made the executive decision that, we were going to terminate, you a little bit earlier. I was like, oh, so what you're saying is you fucking swindled me to come into a Saturday because you didn't want to drive from your home. And then you fired me early. I was like, whatever, dude. So all this time, I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent right here. But yeah, after that, they fucked me over. And I said at that point, I'm never going to let somebody else dictate how I treat people. And in doing that, I went all in ID and I've built a nice business.
It's a good story. Yeah.
Stories I could tell you from that place. Celebrities that were fucking so doped up, so numbed out on like anti-anxiety medications. The general populace that was on anti-anxiety medications, professional sports athletes, retired professional sports athletes that were coming in to use us for medical marijuana cards. Supermodels would come in and, they got really mad at me one time because a supermodel came in and she's like, well, I just want to be more flexible. And I put her through the exam, literally head to toe, tested every single fucking joint. I was like, I got to find something here that this woman is inflexible enough, because obviously I'm a guy. Obviously she's a supermodel. Obviously I want to see her twice a week for 8 weeks because I'm a dude. And I got through it all and there's nothing wrong with her. She's like, I want to be more flexible. And I said, well, Pilates is probably what you're going to need to become more flexible, because there's not any dysfunction in your body that's causing lack of flexibility. Got pissed at me about that. Yeah, just absolutely fucking asinine. I saw somebody that was, gosh, I don't want to break a law here. Somebody that was a model based on a particular body composition when her body composition was not that way. So they were actually changing her to look a certain way in the photos to make her more relatable, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I basically had a plus size model that wasn't plus size at fucking all. This woman was tiny. I could get my hands around her waist like this. And I was like, you're a plus, like, So just nut stuff. But moral of the story is none of that stuff, none of that interest, none of that fun could keep me out of practice. That just, I felt was swindling people out of their money unfairly.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's very sustainable for for someone like yourself. How much did life change when you got into practice for yourself and got to do your own thing?
I mean, a lot. I got so much happier. I was commuting for like 90 minutes one way too to get to this place. And I made a bet on myself, right? Which for those of you who've never bet on yourself in, I wouldn't call this a life or death situation, but it's a make or break situation to start your own business. To bet on yourself and to succeed is the fucking greatest feeling you could possibly ever fathom. Like, you think sex feels good? Like, you think fucking mushrooms, LSD, marijuana, cocaine, you name it, you think that shit feels good? Try betting on yourself and winning, right? And going through all the tough times in order to do that, going through, and I mean, I could tell you right now, I got the thing pulled up right here. I mean, we go and we look back, in October, there's some weeks I saw 15, 11 patients, 16 patients, in September, I saw 67 patients total. And to be able to like sit there and think, man, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if I have what it takes to run a business. I don't know if I'm good enough I don't know if I'm good enough to get people better by not being like a smooth operating marketer, right? Like, that's the thought that crosses your mind when you're like, oh, fuck, I left this system that was designed to make money, but it wasn't necessarily designed to help people. I've left that system under the assumption that I can do both. I can help people, I can make money, I can grant myself freedom. And that first week, you're like, oh, you know what I mean? That first month, you're like, oh boy, this is what I got to do, But to succeed in doing that, it's, figuratively, you're fucking rock hard. Figuratively, you're fucking rock hard. That's the best way I could describe it. Sorry for all the listeners out there that are under 18 or don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I moved my practice 5 minutes from my home where I lived. So that ridiculously improved my quality of life. I got to look patients in the eye and be like, listen, if you're not into this, fucking get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like, as a business owner, being able to do that when you've been like the passive mouse for a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, where you're like, oh, I got to make this person like me. Just being able to be in the position where it's like me or not, I'm going to fix you. This is how it's going to be. Sayonara if you don't want to. So my life is not even remotely the same. I get to work out. I get to enjoy my fiance. I get to enjoy my family. I get to go, oh, do I need to, I'm not thinking about my PTO when I want to go home to Chicago to visit my family. I'm like, yeah, I can fucking make this happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's life-changing. That's very fulfilling. And I guess my sort of backstory in that sense has some similarities, but it's a bit different because I also came from doing something that I fucking hated as well. For a long time, I came straight out of high school. I didn't even finish high school. I went straight into working in the IT industry. And as a young man, that wasn't a bad place to be if you kind of knew what you were doing and you're learning as you go. I was kind of moving up that ladder every couple of years, working through some different jobs. And so as a young dude, I was making money, which was exciting. That's a time when typically as a sort of 16, 17, 18-year-old, you generally don't get exposed to having an income and stuff like that. So as that was sort of coming in, that was pretty cool, and just kind of just rolled with that. I ended up working in that space for about 17 years by the time I finally just couldn't do it anymore. I never really had a passion for it. And, I think you sort of mentioned before, the money was coming in, and there's some sort of sexy things that you get to do, like hanging out with supermodels and stuff like that. But you're probably going home at the end of the day and you've never been more miserable.
Oh yeah.
And that, I felt like that. I didn't get to hang out with supermodels or anything. I was just the IT guy. Working
You're just the nerd at the computer station. Meanwhile, I'm touching supermodels' butts, assessing for sciatic nerve function.
Right. Yeah. I got some pretty decent stuff. I got to travel the world a bit. We went to the UK a couple of times and did some cool stuff. But yeah, I was never really into it that much. I enjoyed getting paid every fortnight or every month or whatever. But, I had some cool stuff. I bought some things, some assets and stuff like that, the stuff that you're supposed to do on life's journey. And I was fucking miserable. I hated.
Fuck what you're supposed to do. I'm gonna interrupt you right now. Fuck what you're supposed to do. Because you just mentioned something really good. And I don't.
Yeah, go. It's good.
I mean to interrupt you. I'm not going to lie and sit here and say that I don't mean to interrupt you. But 17 years, and that probably went by like this, to where it's like just the inertia of life took you along and you were making money. And as a young kid, right, when you get that money and you feel that sense of power, it's fucking addicting, right? You feel that. But then you start to understand, you're like, what am I actually doing to earn that money? Like, am I making a mark on the world? Am I improving my skills? And it's like, making money doing one thing is not the same as making money doing another thing. Like, building what you're building right now in your life, in your business, and to be able to make money from that gives you such a different sensation than, like you said, collecting a paycheck every fortnight. And to me, it's part of the reason why it's like, in this world right now, there's a large disdain for people that make money. Because if you don't understand it, like, to be in a position where you're Jeff Bezos, to like build a company up from nothing, like, you fucking deserve billions of dollars, in my opinion, because I'm sitting here trying to be you, Jeff Bezos. You're Chris, and you're trying to be Jeff Bezos, or whatever degree of Jeff Bezos that you deem satisfactory. So it's like, money objectively is power, and it's always how you obtain that power and how you utilize that power that, I guess, money derives its instinctive and inherent morality. So
and we're already bald too, so we kind of look a bit like Jeff Bezos, which is pretty cool. Already partway there.
Well, Elon Musk was balding too, and then all of a sudden that dude's got like fucking hair again. Man, the hair plugs in this world are getting a lot better than they were in the 80s, right?
Yeah, I still can't afford that, so it's not happening.
Who the fuck wants that? When have you, again, we've talked about this before, but when has a chick ever looked at you and was like, can't have it, man, you're too bald? Like, I've never had somebody look at me and be like, yeah, the hair is just a no deal for me. And again, I'm assuming that somebody out there is thinking, I hate bald guys. But it's like, yeah, if I look at a girl and her hairstyle is one way versus the other, it's not a deal breaker. So it's like, yeah, whatever, fuck you. Okay, go ahead. I'm on a tangent city today.
That's all good. Yeah, look, you sort of brought me out of my train of thought, but yeah, dude. So like, I was wanting to bust out of that career for quite a while, and I had a lot of false starts. I was probably trying too hard to try and figure out, where do I go? What do I do? And I was spitballing all sorts of stupid ideas. Nothing ever felt comfortable. Some things seem like they're exciting and they make sense, but nothing just ever felt comfortable. So the only thing that I could really get comfort with was something that was involved in education, really, because you had to put that work in, and you'd come out of that with something that was, it should be able to carry you forward. I mean, what you know what you know now, and
that's a little foreshadowing for you.
Yeah, but it sat easier with me than like investing in starting a CrossFit gym or something like that. That just didn't, that decision for me, if I was going to go down that path and make that change, it had to be something that I was it had to carry some weight. It had to be something that was going to work. So anyway, long story short, went down this path of healthcare education. Probably, and I really should thank, I think, the involvement in CrossFit for pushing me that way, because that was one thing that actually, when I got involved with that, it really did change a lot in my life, because I was pretty unhappy in the point where I was. And so when I kind of dove into that, and that was a big thing that really brought a lot of enjoyment. Just really redirected new focus, I think. And so then that led into this whole wanting to understand injuries and wanting to understand biomechanics and wanting to understand just how I can use my body better and improve my mobility so that I could, go and do an overhead squat and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, you'd want to go straight from the office and go into the gym, and you'd want to try and get under a barbell or something. And so I was constantly battling just niggling kind of injuries, nothing that was too problematic. It was just annoying. And I always wanted to understand, if this kind of hurt, then what did that mean? And so I was always on the internet looking at YouTube videos and looking at resources and,
which foam roller you were going to use to finally eliminate your pain.
Yeah, I bought all that shit. I've got
the
heaps
Supernova.
Of it. Yeah, I've got heaps of that stuff.
The peanut.
Yeah, made my own several times.
The homemade peanut. Yeah, that's how you know you're a fucking OG, man.
Yeah, look, and it was good, because what I was finding was that sometimes I think getting on top of those things, it was a lot simpler than it was made out to be. I'd go and see someone to get help, go and see a, chiro, physio, osteo, whatever it was, get a massage. And I was kind of frustrated with that sometimes, because it wasn't the problem that I went with wasn't necessarily responding well, and it wasn't getting better quickly, and I still didn't understand what the problem was. And I was actually finding that just by doing my own sort of soft tissue therapy with whatever I could find, I was actually kind of getting better results. And so it just started opening up my thought processes around the value of soft tissue treatment. And it made sense to me, because what we were doing in that gym environment especially was pretty stressful on those tissues. So it made sense that we needed to address that, rather than just going straight to the joint, for instance, or just straight into a stretch or another exercise of some sort. So it sort of made me wonder a little bit, why isn't there just more really direct and very precise and specific hands-on work for these tissues? So as I was kind of diving into this education process, going down chiropractic path, that was always on my mind. And, I've mentioned this before, I was able to study remedial massage early on in the piece as well, because I wanted to explore this further and be able to work in that field. So that's where, for me, it really started to gather a head of steam and really go down that path. And then, before I found ID, I did a active release techniques course. And that was a big moment, I think. I did the upper extremity course, which was like the hardest one out of the bunch. It had a book, like it was huge. And it was a 3 or 4 day course, and it was pretty hard. It was 107 protocols or something. But what that did was it opened up this whole idea of, I guess what we kind of do now. It was on that continuum, that idea of how we need to move tissues and how we need to address fibrosis, and how things get stuck to each other and they need to be independently moving. And so that foundation, really, for me, that kind of sunk in there. And so then when I did get to take that next step towards ID, it was just the next logical layer on top of all this. and it filled in all the gaps, I think. So we've kind of arrived now where you and I do kind of lean heavily on soft tissue treatment, but we've kind of gone through these phases of realizing that it's necessary, because if we don't actually get to a point where those tissues are healthy, and if those tissues are still blocking range of motion, and then we're trying to actually kind of circumvent all that and go through and you just need to get strong, you just need to get back into your movement patterns, or you just need to do this. We kind of miss all that stuff. So I think for me, that's what's really stands out about it. That's what's really important, is that it's, we don't miss any of that stuff. And, just through my own experiences, that was what was super, super important. And that was where I really got the most bang for buck, as a patient myself. And so it doesn't surprise me that we see this shit work, every day. So yeah.
Yeah, we've been through the ringer everybody who's been in our position has at one point in their life been hurt and has been looking for answers. That's just a given, right? Nobody who's never had joint pain in their life is like, you know what? Wakes up one day and it's like, yeah, that's what I want to be. I want to be that guy who deals with joint pain. It's like, no, you got to come from a certain place of inherent empathy in order to be that way. And then, right, once you realize that there aren't any good answers, many of the answers that are out there just aren't good enough, right? You may come across a doctor, every once in a while that gets things right, from a fundamental standpoint and gets people better at a better rate. You might run into a doctor that, knows to treat the subscapularis when there's shoulder impingement, right? Not because they're ID, but because that's just what they've learned over the years. And they've created their own system that works because they're fundamentally concerned with soft tissue. But there wasn't a system that was designed to do that well, until ID came around. And take it from us, because we've been patients, we've been doctors. I'm sure during your clinic, if you've ever practiced any sort of chiropractic that's not based in principles, that doesn't actually fix unrelenting chronic pain, is you'll know that it's not satisfying, because you're not doing shit. And it becomes a marketing ploy after that, when in reality, your marketing ploy takes care of itself outside of a few, again, basic fundamental principles like asking referrals, making sure that your website's clean, your points of contact are clean, everything like that. Everything takes care of itself after that point. Like you could be a successful chiropractor without even having an Instagram page, in my opinion. Like, all you need is fucking Google. That's it. People will find you and get fixed by you, and they'll get your friends to come to you. So we've taken the journey to get to this point as patients and providers. And we're here not because we've sipped some weird ass fucking Kool-Aid. We're here not because, Dr. Brady has pictures of us in compromising positions, naked or anything like that. We're here because we're genuinely ethical people that want to get people better. We arrived on this path at this point in a very concerted and logical way. So,
yeah. And, we talked today about why we largely favor soft tissue treatment, and that's a huge part of what we do. But ultimately, I think we're in favor of the right thing at the right time for that patient. So that might be soft tissue treatment. It is most of the time, because that's what's highly involved in the cases we're dealing with. But the best thing might be to go somewhere else. We might figure that out in the process. The best thing could be something else completely. And if that's our job to figure that out, and to, so I'm in favor of that. We might do 90% of our work is rooted in soft tissue treatment after all the diagnostic stuff, but it's whatever's the right thing. That's what I'm in favor of. I know you're the same way.
Yeah. And it's again, I'm not I'm not a believer that anybody does anything ever in a selfless manner, right? I think every act that any human being does is in one way, shape, or form selfish, right? Again, you're never going to convince me otherwise. Whether, you fucking go work at a soup kitchen, it's not because you're, maybe in a tangential motivation, it's because you want to feed those people. But at the end of the day, you're looking to feel better about yourself. So I'm always like, oh, what's the selfish motivation for me to take this person that doesn't need my help, right? Take the supermodel, doesn't need my help for, flexibility, and referring them to the right place, which is a Pilates class that will give you some time under tension. That person is going to be like, wow, that motherfucker is trustworthy. And a trustworthy individual is going to get more patient referrals. So it's like, I'm not doing anything for the good of the fucking world, right? But by doing what's good for the world, I'm consequently being rewarded. So it's like, I don't want anybody to think that I'm some like Christ-like character. No, I'm trying to run a business, and that's the long-sighted way to keep the business moving in as best way as possible. And it just so happens that it helps the most amount of people.
Yeah, it's a way to be fulfilled about what you do, I think, because we already talked about maybe going home and just feeling like shit every day. And, if you do the right thing by people day in, day out in your practice, with your brand, with the thing that you're standing behind and promoting, that's a nice feeling to go home and know that you've represented yourself well. So
100%, my man. It's been a beautiful podcast. It's been an absolutely beautiful pod. We tried to keep it a little shorter, a little more concise for our extremely, extremely loyal listenership out there. So we hope you guys enjoyed this one.
And we're working on a new name. We're spitballing something around. So hopefully we're going to be able to bust that out soon. We've got our 10 episodes under the belt now as Two Bald Bastards. But
we'll still be bald and we'll still be figurative bastards.
That is true.
We got to change it. I'm not are you a literal bastard, Chris? I don't think so, right?
Don't believe so, no.
Yeah, I'm not a literal bastard either, but figurative, I'm about as big of a fucking bastard as it gets.
Yeah, I've probably been called one a few times, but yeah.
Oh, definitely. I don't even. It's probably a week doesn't go by where somebody doesn't call me a bastard.
All right, so take it as a compliment.
Right.
All right, so we'll be back. We'll see you guys next week for episode 11.
Salute. Have a good weekend, week, life.